Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very special edition of the Don Lemon Show. I saw something on social media that caught my eye, and I immediately reached out to these folks, hoping I could get them on. Let me show you what I saw, and then we're going to interview someone who was in that video to explain to us what's going on and if they've received any help. Here it is.
Guys, my name's Nolan Ager, and I'm a senior at A.C. Reynolds High School and a fifth-generation farmer here at Hickory Nut Gap. I just want to take a minute to share something important that's happening in our local food system.
For the past 3 years, Hickory Nut Gap has been honored to provide locally sourced, grass-fed beef to schools across North Carolina through a program that made high-quality, nutritious food more accessible to kids.
It's been a way for farms like ours to directly support our community, making sure students get good food on their plates while strengthening local agriculture.
We just received notice that federal funding for this program, the Local Food for Schools and Child Care Initiative, has been pulled as part of recent cost-saving measures.
We get that budgets are tight, but this program wasn't about making money. It was about something bigger, building community through agriculture, connecting kids with local food, and keeping dollars circulating in our local economy.
We'd love to see this decision reconsidered. If you care about keeping local food in our schools, now's the time to speak up.
Thanks for being a part of this journey with us. Let's keep pushing for a food system that supports our farmers, our kids, and our future.
Yeah, good folks there. And I'm so glad that I saw that. And I am so happy to be joined by Jamie Ager, who is the CEO and owner of Hickory Nut Gap Farm, located in Fairview, North Carolina, a pillar of the community you are. Thank you very much, Jamie, for joining us. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us what happened here. So the new administration comes in, there are budget restraints. What happened?
Well, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago that we got word from the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, which I've been involved in like farm organizations over the years, Farm Bureau and folks like that. And they got a grant. I believe they got a grant from the federal government to do local food in local schools. And I think this program went to all the different states across the country. And the Department of Agriculture in North Carolina has had sort of a farm to school. Commissioner Troxler here in North Carolina was interested in doing all that stuff. And so this grant kind of helped make it all happen. And so we were really excited to be able to sell our beef into the local school systems, and it was a good opportunity for selling hamburger meat for us. And then number two, it was really cool for us, since we have 3 kids in the school system, to be able to sell local food into local schools. And it generates a lot of conversations among the children about where does food come from, and the schools were even doing a good job sort of celebrating where the meat was coming from as well.
Yeah. So this is personal for you because your son Nolan was in there, and you said you have 3 kids. So imagine you have 2 other kids. So this was something personal for you. Not only did it help your farm, but also you could give back to the community. Am I correct?
That's right. Yeah, we weren't making a ton of gross margin on this product. As you can imagine, the school systems don't want to pay a ton of money. The meat business, though, is really just all about carcass balance and utilization. And this was a great way for us to really sort of participate in a program that was, we felt like, really consistent with sort of getting healthier food into the schools, which it seems like a great idea.
So how and when did you find out that this this program would be killed? That this program that's really helped a lot of folks in your community and provided, I would imagine, it's provided food for hungry school children, right? How did you find when and how did you find out?
We got an email like about a month ago or so, and it basically just said that this grant funding's been pulled, and so your last POs will be in the next couple of months, whatever those POs were, but don't expect these to come back after that. So it's a pretty simple email, and I think that when we saw that, it didn't surprise me, because you're seeing a lot of this activity going on with like budget cuts and the Department of Government Efficiency doing their stuff. But I do think that this is a scenario where it's an error. They made an error, because really these programs are consistent with some of what the current administration's goals are, which is the Make America Healthy Again initiatives. So to me, I'm like, oh, this is just an overstep. So let's let them know. That's our job. So that's what we did.
I want to talk to you about that, but what did you think when you got the email?
I mean, it's just a little disappointing. It's like, oh, that's not surprising, but very disappointing, and I mean that's about it. It wasn't like devastating because I said before, like our gross margin on this product isn't terrifically strong or anything, but it was like, oh man, this was a really like this was one of the most proud things that we do is sell
Yeah.
local food into local schools, and to have that cut out was just it's lame.
Yeah. You said that you believe it was consistent with the current administration's goals to make America healthy again. There are people who are saying that, and you said you believe that it was a mistake or an oversight, but there are a number of folks who feel that way, that the way that you're feeling. A number of farmers, even folks who work in the federal government are saying, I didn't think it would happen to me. I thought it was other people, even people who are being deported. So do you think it's consistent with their goals, or it's actually what they're saying their goals are? Because it appears a lot of people who thought that, they voted for something and it ended up being something else. How do you feel about that?
I think, yeah, I mean, the whole thing is they're making big drastic moves, obviously, and I guess that's what you get to do when you win. But I think that yeah, there's definitely an element here where the ability for local food going into local schools is just such a win for everybody involved that I just don't see that as a reasonable place to cut. I mean, there's tons of places in USDA that probably need more attention than this one. And to me, it's just kind of like unfortunate that this one got picked out. And
Mhm.
and I feel like we are in a good position here at Hickory Nut Gap to help highlight that.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Well, we are a brand of meat. We practice what we call regenerative agriculture here at Hickory Nut Gap. We work with a bunch of farms in our region to kind of regionalize our food production and beef and pork in particular. And when we think about, the mission that we sort of lean into at Hickory Nut Gap is to build communities through agriculture. And what that really means is try to build a meat brand that's good, that creates livestock that are good for the land through good grazing practices, rotational grazing, regenerative management, and then it pays farmers a fair price for their food. And then ultimately, we've learned that grass-fed beef, grazing animals, is also healthier for humans. And so for us to kind of like, see build different type of meat company that's doing things differently, and to be able to sell our meat into local schools is just such a terrific way to lean into our mission.
So listen, I know this. You may not want to make this political, but it sounds to me like you're worried about the earth.
Yes,
You're
we
worried
are.
about.
We are.
You sound like a big lib. You know what I mean? That's what people will say to you. You sound like a big liberal because you care about the earth and you want to.
Well, the fact is that the earth and the land is connected to the animals and their welfare, which is
Yeah,
connected to human health in our life. And I don't think that's a political issue. I think
yeah.
that as we look at what agriculture's done for
Oh,
the
let me
past,
just say this. It
yeah,
sounds
go
like
ahead.
what I'm not saying. It sounds like how others may be viewing it as something that is
Sure.
political, like what make America healthy again. But then you sound like when you care about the earth and that sort of thing. That's what folks will say. So I'm not saying that you are.
Right. No, no, that's fair. Yeah, totally. And maybe it is, right? I think, but I do think that these issues cross the political divide. That's kind of my point is like
Right.
we're dealing with something that shouldn't be political. Like this is good for kids, it's good for agriculture, it's good for the food system, and we need to inject some entrepreneurship and creativity into our food system.
You didn't have to, you said this is not a big part of your business, right? So you didn't have to lay anybody off because of this, did you?
No, we didn't.
No. So, but
That's
it
right.
does impact your business, but you said slightly, correct?
It does. Yes, for sure. For
Do
sure.
you feel, I hate to be so blunt, do you feel bamboozled or betrayed at all by the administration or by the
Um
cuts?
I think that it's I mean I was I guess it's hard to feel bamboozled at this point by the current administration just because they kind of did what they did, and it's hard to be bamboozled just in the context that um that it was these drastic cuts, and I think Trump in general seems like a make stuff happen kind of guy. But I was a little frustrated because I got excited by the Make America Healthy Again component of it. And to me, that's where I do feel a little bamboozled, where it's like, hey, we're aligned here. We're trying to help make people healthy. And to me, whenever we have an alignment like that, hey, let's look for wins, right? Like wherever you can in any political environment. And we were participating also in some of these what were they, the climate smart agriculture grants. A lot of that stuff's gotten cut as well. And so I guess I wasn't surprised, just because the political environment is what it is. But it's also like, when we have an opportunity to do something that's very consistent with the stated goals of some of this, the constituency of the current administration, then like that's a little annoying and frustrating.
All right, frustrating. We've spoken to a number of farmers, and they were, pretty open with us. Will Westmoreland, right? We've spoken to him, and we've spoken to other farmers. You're a supporter of the president, correct?
No,
you're not. Okay.
No.
All right. So there are folks who are around you. We've spoken to farmers who were supporters of the president, and they said, I'm not so sure now. We've spoken to others that are not supporters of the president. But what are you hearing where you are about farmers? Are they still in support? Are they on the fence? Are they kind of confused about what's going on? Or there's a sort of in limbo now? What are you hearing from your fellow farmers?
I mean, I think that, well, that's a good question, because we've been sort of buried in Hurricane Helene world here in Western North Carolina.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that.
And so that's okay. But that's been mostly my focus and stuff like that. So I honestly haven't really talked to many farmers in the last couple of months about this particular issue. I mean, I think, rural America is definitely voting for Donald Trump, and there's frustrations. I think there's cultural issues between like urban areas and rural areas. There's a ton of political divide in this country, and I really see myself as like I understand all these different worlds pretty well, and I think that sort of camping up and I see a lot of the political issues that affect rural America as very bipartisan, and to me it gets frustrating whenever one side, I have complicated political beliefs, Don, and I think that how do we solve hard problems in rural America is not sort of a red and blue type issues. I think that there's a ton of problems with the USDA, so it's hard to like want to have to look at that as like a binary, oh, you shouldn't cut, or these really clear answers. Is that not very helpful response there?
No, that's a very helpful response, because I think you're like most Americans who have complicated political beliefs. I think that people like to put people in the category of left and right. I think there are very few people who are extremely far left, and very few people, I believe, that are extremely far right. I think people have, their political beliefs are nuanced. And so I thoroughly understand that. So I believe that the general consensus around the country is that, most farmers, all, if not most, and I know it's not all didn't, but they are supporters of the president, and they are somehow MAGA or red. Is that so? Do you think that that's true or no?
Yes, I think generally true. Definitely.
You think they are?
Farmers?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that if you look at the like voting trends, they definitely are, right?
Yeah. So what happened to you, brother?
Well, I grew up in a family with a bunch of old, Southern Democrats here, and so I've always had and I do feel semi-abandoned by all the political establishment at this point. But at the same time, the modern day sort of red and blue context to me is unhelpful when we. And part of the thing that did get me excited about this whole Make America Healthy thing was that if we can cut through some red tape at USDA and put programs in that are actually going to incentivize farmers to do good work for the land, to create healthy food for people. To me, those are great things. And let's try to make those things something that we can improve. And to me, that gave me, if there is a place to operate within the current, political environment, this one seems like a good one. And this program seems like very consistent with that message. And to me, that's where I got a little frustrated.
Yeah. Do you anticipate being impacted by the tariffs? Because, Liberation Day and all that stuff. Do you think that you're going to be impacted by that? Are you worried about it?
I mean, it's interesting because we are selling mostly, USA raised beef in the USA. So we don't really have
Made in America beef.
Made in America beef. And so I don't see that as impacting us. I think it'll impact a lot of the big commodity agriculture type farmers. I think that, exports of corn and soybeans and all that stuff's definitely going to be impacted. And the irony kind of that whole system of the sort of large scale commodity row crop system is it's in a lot of ways, that system is de-risked from a lot of risk through the crop insurance programs. And so, and I find that kind of interesting in the context that that's not a very, like, agriculture is less entrepreneurial than a lot of other businesses, which is also inconsistent with kind of the Trump administration ideas. And here we are at Hickory Nut Gap doing a lot of creative, our own marketing, our own production partnerships and everything else. And so we have a much more entrepreneurial approach to sort of changing the food system than a lot of mainstream farmers, which is also another irony of the political system that we kind of operate in, and the worldview that we have to have as a business.
I just want to make it clear because we're streaming and sometimes it cuts out. You said it's consistent or inconsistent. What did you say?
I think it's the crop insurance payments that are in place through USDA for like large agricultural systems are it's inconsistent with kind of a free market entrepreneurial approach to agriculture. And so to me, that's an inconsistent message from like a more conservative approach. Seems like it would be more entrepreneurial. But that's in fact not true. The USDA programs through crop insurance creates a lot of stability, which is nice because it creates like lack of risk, but it also creates not a very entrepreneurial ecosystem in our agricultural models.
So look, since you're here and you're being so candid, and I think that who better than you to explain this? Why do you think that you said that it's such, how do I put this? If you can explain to us sort of I think there's probably a tug of war among farmers about, supporting the president's ideas or supporting conservative or liberal ideas or however you want to qualify it amongst farmers. Because I'm not sure that they're so consistent. You believe that most of them are conservative, but what is the thought process? What's the yin and the yang, where people will say, I'm going to vote for him, but then I didn't think he was going to do this. Can you explain that to us? Because a lot of people are wondering, to be quite honest with you, Jamie, and I appreciate you doing this, being so candid, is that why on earth would someone vote for him, right? For this, why on earth would a farmer vote for him? And then you know what FAFO means, right? That you effed around and find out. Why would farmers do that? And they feel like, well, maybe I shouldn't have any sort of empathy for farmers because it is of their own making, and they effed around and they found out. So now deal with it.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, these tariffs are definitely going to hit the farming community with probably through lower valued commodities and stuff like that, I guess. I don't talk to a lot of the farmers that are sort of in these positions, to be honest. And so my perspective isn't, I hesitate to speak for other farmers in that.
But you know the community, and you've been around. How long have
you
been
know the community? I mean, I think that in general, the community is pretty conservative. And I don't know if it's like a policy-driven conservatism, as I was saying before, because a lot of the policies are actually not very conservative. There's USDA programs like crazy that prop farmers up, right? And so in general, that's sort of an irony of our food system. But I will say that it's mostly cultural issues and stuff like that. People get frustrated whenever they see government programs. And then that's something I also notice, is that government programs are frustrating to interact with. And I'm sympathetic to that too, as an entrepreneur. And so I think that there's no simple answer here. And I don't think anybody's like I'd be curious to learn if people are having buyer's remorse yet. I do think that if they started touching these crop insurance programs, that would be a pretty big step in the. They might do it. I don't know, but it would hurt a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think it probably hurt the support for the administration. Do you what's the question that I wanted to ask you? You talked about all these programs. I don't think people realize all the incentives and all of the sort of incentive programs that farmers take advantage of. Will Westmoreland is very transparent about that. You guys rely on government programs a lot.
There are definitely.
And you have to, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, depending on if you have to or not, but there's the crop insurance programs, which kind of like our commodity programs, and there's conservation programs. There's so many different programs that it's hard to paint it with a broad brush, but certainly is the federal government involved in production agriculture in almost every way? And the answer is yes.
Yeah. But I don't think people realize that. They think like it's just people in the city, or it's poor rural people, or it's people of color who are relying on government programs. But that's not necessarily so. People in the heartland who are doing, I believe, one of the most American sort of driven businesses or professions, and that's farming, are relying on the government, which is taxpayers as well.
That's right. Yep, you're totally right.
Yeah. What about, let's talk about undocumented immigrants, because that's in it. Do you, look, there's a lot of undocumented immigrants. We've spoken to farmers. It's no secret. I have farmers in my family, in my, in-law, they all have farms, and there are immigrants who work there, and many of them are undocumented. What happens with the removal of these undocumented immigrants? Can farms stay in business? I'm not saying that you don't tell on yourself, but
I got kids, man.
What do you mean?
I have my sons. I'm just kidding.
That's your help.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're in the livestock business, which is less labor intensive than a lot of different agricultural products, like the produce industry, for instance, or in North Carolina, the tobacco industry. And there's a lot of programs like the H-2A programs that have been in place to kind of help bring in workers for all these programs. But certainly the sort of immigration issue affects those industries much more than it affects us.
How so? What are you saying?
Well, because the produce industry, for instance, you gotta, like, it just involves a lot more migrant labor in general, more labor, more seasonal labor, that type of thing. We have an apple industry in one county over in Henderson County, and there's a lot more Hispanic folks in those roles than in the meat, and then raising cattle and pigs and chickens.
Are they needed? The folks, they need these workers?
I mean, the answer is probably you need workers to pick fruits and stuff like that, for sure. I haven't specifically heard of like people getting deported that were functioning in a very specific role, but it's also like been January, February, and March, right? Since we've done this in the summertime, we're going to end up with I'm guessing there'll be scenarios that play out where people are going to have trouble getting some of their crops picked.
Yeah. So for folks who are watching this, what do you say to them? Like, how are farmers doing right now? Because I think you guys are a leading indicator of what the economy is like, because you put food on our tables. You know what I mean?
That's a great question. I mean, I wish I could provide a general answer. I think that commodities aren't super high right now, which is going to hurt a lot of the corn and soybean type farmers that are out there.
What do you mean they're not super high? Explain what you mean by that.
The price of corn is low. That type of thing.
Yeah.
But I am sort of a general optimist in my life, that I think that we can figure it out, right? This is what farmers can do, is figure out how to navigate different times.
So a cautious optimism, is that a fair way of putting it?
Yeah. And that may just be me. I don't know. There's other farmers out there that you might could talk to that have different perspective, for sure.
who may be a little bit more pessimistic about it. Look, I
Yeah.
am a cautious optimist as well. I'm really concerned about the tariffs and those sorts of things, which is usually a tax on the consumer. And I'm also very concerned about farmers, right, who I say put food on our table, because I believe that they will feel it. They will be among the folks who feel it the hardest. You know what I'm saying? If it goes sideways, and I believe it probably has a very good chance of going sideways when you're putting tariffs on things. So then, what is your advice then to the farmers or to the administration or anyone who can possibly help? What do you say to the administration? What do you want them to know about what you and others are dealing with?
I think that the it's a good question. In this instance, with this specific program, the local food for, I can't remember the specific name of the thing, but getting local food into local schools, is the food system is massive, right? And it's dominated by large players. And I think there's a general acknowledgement out there that we need to have a food system that's more resilient long term. We saw a lot of problems with like meat plants during COVID, and just the ability to kind of regionalize our food system and actually know food on the shelf. To me, our food system has some really big problems. And when we look at how we can make it better, these types of programs that we're getting local food into local schools, not only like helps create local community and local keeps dollars in the community and feeds kids healthier food, but it injects a little bit of market pressure into the system that actually we need to be thinking outside the box on how we do marketing and sales. Like farmers generally are price takers, and in some ways we need to become better price makers through how we do things and how we sell things. And to me, if we can inject more entrepreneurship into the rural community, that's good news. So that's my message, I guess, is how let's figure out how to make the food system stronger, more resilient, more regionalized, healthier, like incentivized healthier foods, not a bunch of processed foods. And that's how we're going to make America healthy, and we'll make America strong too, and get our farmers to make sure that we can sell a product that's valuable and we get paid for it in a fair way.
Jamie Ager from Hickory Nut Gap, thank you. The program that you were doing, I thought was fantastic. I hope that they rethink it and they, give you some funds, or at least bring that program back. And I appreciate the advice that you have given us and the candor with which you have brought to this interview. So thank you. Go talk to your other farmers. Tell them to come on. We'd love to talk to them. We'd love to hear what they have to say about it. And best of luck to you and your kids. Okay. What I was heartened by? I was heartened by seeing your kid, like a younger person. Hopefully he's a farmer as well. Because it showed two generations of folks there. And I think that, if you bring younger people into this, that will be helpful as well.
Thank you. No, for sure. Young people make it all work. And if we can create a future for young people to want to get into agriculture, then that's a win for everybody.
Yeah, just remember, I saw you on social media, and that's probably because your kid probably told you to get on the TikTok or something like that.
That's right.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate you.
Sure thing.